Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. And I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter as a cosplay photographer on Facebook and Instagram, Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places, doing a bunch of other things. Joining me tonight is, you know what? I'm still so tired from Anime Boston, I can't think of anything quippy to say about your cap. So, Byron, introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. Byron McNeil, a.k.a. Byron D0 on multiple facets of the internet. And much like Rodney, also recovering from Anime Boston. I do a bunch of stuff for the site. I write reviews. I do social media stuff at conventions. Sometimes I do video content, and I just dipped my toe into photography for you guys this weekend as well. So there's that. And I also have a webtoon series called Sisterhoods. Two words, Sisterhoods. It's a sci-fi reimagining of Little Red Riding Hood. Check it out. I would appreciate any and all feedback.
Check it out, folks. Before we get into the first of what is admittedly a relatively small number of items in comparison to our usual week, again, I blame Anime Boston. Very tough to pay attention to the news cycles when, you're picking which bucket to throw on which water, or on which fire. You don't throw buckets on water. That would be silly. So we'll get through them pretty quickly. But before we get to the first one, we're going to do our first promo, as we always do, and that is ask you guys to check us out on Twitch. We do this live streaming thing every week with multiple shows on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live, and on Twitch. Trying to build our Twitch following, so twitch.tv/nerdcaliber is the URL. It's on your screen right now. If you have a Twitch account, we'd love to have you follow us there, and be active and interact with us on the chats. And we love having people on the chat. On all of our shows, the news shows, let us know what you think about the things that we're talking about, the items that have dropped this week and our big news. Not all of them are Star Wars Celebration related, but a lot are. Because they dropped a lot of news.
Yes, they did.
And it's something that I went through myself.
Shoot.
And while Byron is trying to figure out what he just turned on.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to talk over him loudly. There we go. All right. So the first news, and it's bad news. We have to do another remembrance. Ray Liotta died this past week at the age of 67. Apparently died in his sleep while he was filming a movie in the Dominican Republic called Deep or Dangerous Waters. Ray Liotta is not known specifically as a nerd content actor. He's never been in a Star Wars or the MCU or any of that stuff, but he has done some pretty impressive nerd-related stuff. Most recently, this is the character Gordon Evans from the series version, Amazon Prime Video version Hannah, based on the movie Hannah. And that is technically a science fiction spy thriller. Hannah is a genetically enhanced being. He had that role. He had, unfortunately, in the worst of the two Sin City movies, Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, this is him as the character Joey. So that is a comic book adaptation, of course. But
don't forget his most important role.
That's it right there, folks. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Tommy Vercetti?
I think it was Vercetti?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's done a few other video game things. He did individual one-off bits on a bunch of cartoons. The Simpsons, playing Morty Slizak. Let's see, what else? SpongeBob SquarePants. He has a track record within nerddom.
Yes. Indeed he does.
Favorite Ray Liotta role? And it doesn't have to be nerdy.
I'm going to say his role in Goodfellas,
Yeah.
just because it's so iconic, and it's one of those things that sticks with me. But my favorite moment was this was back when the G4 awards were still a thing, and he got Best Actor in a Video Game. He his speech was, yeah, I don't know where you guys got this idea from that I'm like this when I'm casting me these roles, and then he's like shouting death threats to somebody off camera.
Well, he is from Newark. I mean, so
True.
you know, um, I mean, obviously Henry Hill in Goodfellas. It's the role, one of the roles that made him Shoeless Joe Jackson in Field of Dreams, of course. But you know, Henry Hill is pretty much the role. But for me, it's got to be, and I can't remember the FBI agent name, but he was Ryan Reynolds' FBI agent partner in Smokin' Aces,
Oh yes.
and he was so good, and that movie is so good, and you know that's one of absolutely my guilty pleasure, I guess, of Ray Liotta roles.
I mean, I'm not a fan of that film, but I did enjoy his performance.
Yeah, I can't see why anybody wouldn't be a fan of that film, but everybody has their stuff. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, so condolences to his family. Apparently, he was
of course.
engaged to be married at the age of
Wow.
67. So, go Ray, or sadly, no longer go Ray. But yeah,
67 is so young though.
yeah, yeah, and for somebody who seemed to be so healthy, I haven't seen anything since the announcement of his passing about what the cause of death was.
Mm.
So, you know, anybody's going to speculate, of course, and we can't stop them, but you know, we just don't know. All right, moving on to another bit of big change, important change for somebody news, I guess. This is Joe Quesada from Marvel Comics. With the title down there, Chief Creative Officer 2011 to present, hasn't actually been the title since 2019, and in fact is really wrong now, as he is leaving Marvel after more than 20, I almost said 40, 20 years with the company, actually 20 years from editor-in-chief or up. So big, huge news. He just announced it on his social media today, with no indication of exactly what he's going on to, but he says it's time to move on to something different. So what assumes that he has something in mind. God forbid that it's going to be like Chief Creative Officer of DC for Warner Brothers Discovery.
Oh God.
Because not even Joe Quesada could make that work, I don't think. But so I first saw him. I didn't realize his first work in comics, he did covers for Valiant, and I used to read all the Valiant titles. I was a huge Valiant fan. But his first work that got to my attention was DC work, and that was he, along with writer. Let's see. Along with writer, what's his name here? Jack Harris rebooted the Golden Age DC character, the Ray, and I loved that comic. The writing was great, but his art was outstanding. And then went on to create, along with Dennis O'Neil, Azrael. Yeah, and particularly the miniseries Batman: The Sword of Azrael, and all of the strong influence that the Azrael storyline had on Batman from that point came from Dennis O'Neil and Joe Quesada. But then,
Azrael was like definitely around my time when I started getting into comics. So yeah, I mean, if he were to come back, I I would, if he were to jump ship to DC, I would hope that he would bring back some of that creativity.
now, I don't know that he would do that because he left the role of editor in chief in 2011 to be chief creative officer for all of Marvel Entertainment. And I don't know if he would go back to being just a, you know, even a chief officer, editor in chief of whatever, to a single division like the comics publishing division of another company. Maybe he would.
Although, So, although I'm still mad about One More Day.
Yeah, everybody is. That was Joe Quesada. He's done some amazing things. He's made some bad mistakes, and that was one of them. The Spider-Man One More Day. Let's retcon so Peter is no longer married to Mary Jane, and the devil is involved, and it's awfully stupid. Harry Brady, welcome to the show. So he was chief creative officer until 2019 when he had a title change because that was when they gave Kevin Feige control of literally everything. And Kevin Feige got the title Chief Operating Officer. So Joe Quesada got a different title while having essentially the same role that he'd had before.
Oh.
But he created the Ultimates universe. He brought Bendis and Mark Millar into Marvel Comics. He's responsible for the Marvel Knights line, the Max line. He's responsible for an awful lot of really influential stuff. The MCU storylines would not exist without the Ultimate storyline.
Especially with Nick Fury.
Making Nick Fury a black man, who in the Ultimate storyline was based on Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes. Another thing that about Joe Quesada's contributions is that him bringing in Bendis, who was a dynamo in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yep. I mean, Bendis is a dynamo in everything, and losing him to DC was a blow for Marvel, and a huge win for DC. Harry, I'm excited for the Willow TV series. That's our last topic. So am I. We'll get into that for sure. But that sounds like a good transition to me, Harry. So let's move on from Joe Quesada. Fingers crossed that whatever he does, his life is essentially made. So that's fine. I'm sure whatever he does, I would love to see him come back as a creator. I mean, he's such a good artist.
Create like his own comics, kind of like Mark Millar did.
Yep. All right. So and then sign huge deals with Netflix to make all sorts of stuff. All right. Sort of tangentially related to comics. If you are an OG Attack of the Show fan, you know this is Blair Butler, their Fresh Ink comic book expert. And there is actually news here that is not necessarily related to comics, but it is related to Butler. Sony and Mandalorian Pictures, according to Deadline, are going to be making a sci-fi movie called Omega that is going to be directed by the filmmaker behind Mortal Kombat, Simon McQuoid. But the script, originally written by somebody named David Crabtree, is being rewritten by none other than Blair Butler, who apparently has been writing stuff. Yeah. Well, apparently has been writing stuff for the last few years that have been turned into movies. Polaroid, Hellfest, was a producer and wrote one of the episodes of the Hulu Marvel series Hellstrom.
Really?
Yeah. So good on her. She apparently just recently wrote a movie called The Bride, which is going to be released by Sony's Screen Gems imprint in August. And McQuoid, of course, known for Mortal Kombat and its upcoming sequel, Mortal Kombat 2, or whatever they're going to call it. So the storyline here is that, according to this exclusive, which means it's from an inside source that has not been confirmed yet by Sony, this takes place in rural Texas. It's about a downtrodden young woman who gets what they say is more than she bargained for. She helps a mysterious stranger who gives her reality warping powers that thrust her into a dark underworld with ancient origins. As she finds herself hunted by a cabal of hitmen, she must try to master her burgeoning skills and discover who she really is. So essentially a comic book story or a superpower story.
Or a shonen anime story.
Or a shonen anime story. Yeah, that's a good point. That could absolutely be a description of a shonen anime. Maybe not a battle shonen, but definitely a shonen. Although being pursued, if they space the hitman out, like you would one per episode, then it could be a battle shonen. So yeah, I like the sound of this. I like the idea, and I haven't seen any of the other stuff that Butler has written, but I'm kind of keen on seeing what this looks like.
Same. Like it definitely sounds really interesting. Like it's a good, again, Blair Butler. I haven't seen much of her stuff, but like when she was on Tag of the Show, she definitely was one of the more knowledgeable people on the show,
Oh yeah. Yep.
and she got some comedic chops too, because one of my favorite skits from her was, it was like during one of their Comic-Con like week things where her and a couple of the other actors were doing X-Men 3 the musical, and she
Oh
played
God.
Jean.
That, the Fantastic Four musical, they did some really good stuff then. Harry Brady, that sounds interesting. You're agreeing with Byron and me. I mean, I think it sounds very interesting too. Um, I thought the best thing she ever wrote was the skit about the movie slasher school, teaching
Ooh.
slashers how to be slashers. Very creative, really funny stuff. They went back to that a bunch of times.
Mm.
All right. Speaking of movies, Sony is apparently going to continue the idea of making video games into movies. Of course, we've got Uncharted. They are working on the TV series Last of Us and Twisted Metal. They're working on a movie based on Ghost of Tsushima. And now, apparently, they are going to be making, I don't know how, a movie based on Gran Turismo.
Why?
Exactly. Why? Because money.
It's going to be a Fast and Furious knockoff. I just know it.
Fast and Furious. I mean, in an ideal world, it will be a knockoff of the Ron Howard, Chris Hemsworth actual real story about F1 racers in the 60s. And I can't remember the name of that movie, but it was really good.
Mm.
But the weird thing here is that, according to this, again, an exclusive, so inside source, not confirmed, from Deadline, Neil Blomkamp is set to direct
What's he done?
District 9, Elysium, Chappie.
Okay.
And Harry Brady points out there is a Hot Wheels movie in the works. That is true. Good point.
And
Obviously,
there's a really good game of Hot Wheels, so
yeah, obviously from Hasbro, I would assume, the parent of Mattel, but or E1, which is the movie division that Hasbro bought. And anyway,
although I will say, now you mentioned this director's like catalog, I'm intrigued. Like,
yeah,
I love his cinematography.
I love that. I love his creative vision. I didn't like Elysium's story. I love Blomkamp's directing. I didn't, yeah, and I love District 9, of course, it was amazing.
I
The
like Chappie.
And Chappie was a lot of fun. It was a little too much. Hey, let's let Ninja and Yolandi be Ninja and Yolandi and just film it. Which isn't ever a bad thing, but that sort of, for me, it really sort of took me out of the movie.
Yeah. You want to be cool?
Yeah. But this is, again, based on a single source. And the last time we reported, a single source Blomkamp directing, remember, he was going to make the Halo movie.
Oh yes.
So, yeah.
I do want to say one thing though. The cars better be indestructible, or I call BS.
That's a good point. I even Gran Turismo, I think you can eventually destroy them, but it takes a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think, as I said, this is very early development. So we have no idea when this might happen. I did see. No, I thought I had seen one of a date in the Omega movie, but apparently not. All right, so
I mean, Uncharted was pretty good, so
it was at least $400 million good so far. So, Harry Brady. Also, there's a horror movie inspired on the character Disney Winnie the Pooh.
No, we're not talking about that. No.
Haven't heard of it. Obviously, not inspired or not, licensed by Disney. So,
well, it's in the public. Pooh is in the public. Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain now.
Oh, that's true. He just can't be portrayed exactly like the drawing.
No red shirt.
Yeah.
But no, we're not talking about that. No.
All right, moving on. Now we start the Star Wars Celebration stuff. First off, we have a date or a month anyway, for Mandalorian Season 3. That is something from the end of Season 2 right there, if you've seen it, and no description for those of you who haven't about what that scene means. But Season 3 will debut in February of 2023. Katie Sackhoff will be returning as Bo-Katan Kryze, or Kryze, depending on how they pronounce that. I can't remember. And what else was in there? I guess that's pretty much it. That was the big news coming out of their first panel Thursday at Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim. There was a panel with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. So I am very excited. You know, the Mandalorian episodes were 100% the best thing about Book of Boba Fett.
This is true.
Yeah, which is too bad for Book of Boba Fett, but no question.
Maybe Season 2 will be better.
Yeah, hopefully, but who knows. All right, so that was the first bit of news. There's not much else to tell. That's pretty much it. The second bit of news is completely new. That is Jude Law. I just grabbed this image because we had it from back when he was announced as being cast as Jon Rogg from the Captain Marvel movie. But it actually kind of fits because it's Jude Law being cast in an upcoming Star Wars series called Skeleton Crew, being run by and directed by John Watts and run by and written by Christopher Ford, both of whom from the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Ooh.
Yeah. And apparently it's going to air sometime next year. They have confirmed that. So good on them. They don't know when in 2023, and I'd be guessing probably later rather than sooner. The story here is apparently it's in the same time block as The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So, just after
Jedi. So post Jedi,
just after the fall of the Empire. And it's, quote, about a group of kids who are about 10 years old who get lost in the Star Wars universe, according to Watts. It says, it stars for kids, but it's not a kid's show. That's what John Watts said.
Now, when you say like that, all I can think of is like, so these kids are getting isekai to the Star Wars universe? Now, this is an isekai I would watch.
I would like to think it's more like they get lost in that they're lost. Like they get into the outer rim, and yeah. Which is cool. I like the idea of Jude Law sort of playing, herdsman on a bunch of kids, traveling in a probably badly explored part of the Star Wars universe. Yep.
A reluctant father.
Reluctant father, yeah. Very cool. And Jude Law coming to a series. The last series I did, he was Young Pope on HBO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a big get.
All we need is Robert Downey Jr. playing Thrawn, and I can die happy.
Disney has a lot of money. I'm not sure Robert Downey Jr. wants to get back into a Disney franchise at this point.
This is true.
But maybe. Could happen. Fingers crossed, right? Yeah. I like this. I like Jude Law in a lot of things, but I do like him in niche, nerdy entertainment. Going all the way back to Gattaca. And then, pretty much everything else he's been. AI.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. Niche for sure. Nerdy, I guess, but not in the sense of, it's not typically nerd entertainment. It's mystery entertainment. But I agree, 100%. He did a fantastic job there. I really liked his take on Watson. My favorite might have been Robert Duvall from the 7% solution. But, Jude Law's was really good. So I'm looking forward to this. And we only have to wait a year-ish.
Exciting.
All right, the first trailer, teaser, technically they call it, that was dropped at Star Wars Celebration is our first long-term look at Andor. The Cassian Andor story, and I loved it. I loved what it said about what the story is going to be about. This takes place 5 years before Rogue One, so it's basically just as Cassian Andor is on his path to become the rebel spy and assassin that he is in that movie.
Yes.
And it tells the story of his planet getting destroyed and basically all of the surviving people becoming migrants. So a story featuring a Hispanic lead actor is going to be telling a migrant story about being abused by an authoritarian government. I hear...
That's awesome.
I hear the anti-SJW redneck
yes.
MAGA hats typing as we speak.
I mean, look what they did with Obi-Wan.
No, I haven't seen any of the episodes. So
Not gonna say nothing.
Zip. But yes, I have read or at least seen the headlines about their actual racist death threats against one of the lead actresses, a black woman. So, yeah. Some people are scum. And I kind of enjoy the fact that Disney is 100% willing to just put the old screws right to them by telling a story featuring a Hispanic character that's all about migrants and how they have to become spies and assassins to defeat the evil government.
How subtle.
Yeah. So yeah, but if you haven't seen it, it looks great. Oh, also,
Yes, it does.
Huge announcement. They've already... So the first series is going to be 12 episodes, longer than just about anything else that's been out there in the Star Wars series universe. They've already announced a second season of 12 episodes, and they're going to start filming it in November.
Wow.
Yeah. They are, I guess, really excited about what they've seen out of these first 12 episodes.
They're going all in, and I'm excited for them.
Oh, yeah. August 31st, boy, I can't wait.
Just in time for my birthday.
Yes, happy birthday from Cassian Andor. And K2SO, who will say something very snarky. Because that's what he does.
Yes.
All right, folks,
I wish you happy birthday, because the captain says I have to.
Exactly. Now I got to make that meme. All right. Last topic, folks. This is probably one of my favorite closing shots from a trailer ever. That last shot of Willow and his team standing on a mud flat, a beach, whatever that is.
Yes.
It's gorgeous. It's not quite silhouette. It's fantastic. And the trailer itself looks awesome. I was very excited, but also a little concerned about the fact that, you remember, this wasn't a big enough hit for it to make a sequel back when this first came out.
Yes.
And when they announced that they were going to turn it into an actual series and a sequel series and a long, years later, follow-up sequel series, I was like, I don't know. It looks so good.
Oh, yes. It looks epic.
Epic is a great word for it, and differently epic. It doesn't look like Lord of the Rings. It doesn't look like Game of Thrones. Thank God it doesn't look like the
original movie?
Well, no, I mean, the original movie for its time I thought was pretty good as far as special effects and so on. No, I was saying it doesn't look like the MTV Shannara series, which was... But it doesn't look like Wheel of Time. It has its very own distinct look, and I really like that.
Well, as Willow always did.
True. I love, absolutely love that we've got, God, I just completely lost his name, lead actor. Warwick Davis. Thank you very much. That we've got Warwick Davis back, and it's set. Harry Brady, this will sure blow my mind. I think it will, honestly, just looking at it. It's set far enough in the future from the original that he looks of an appropriate age.
I'm really hoping though that there's at least like some sort of like homage to Matt Mardigan, just because of Val Kilmer and his current state.
I would like to see that. I'm not really sure how they would do it. If they have a monument to his death or something like that, then that's kind of morbid great for Val Kilmer, who is sick. Harry Brady, Warwick Davis is a
Top Gun. You haven't seen the Top Gun movie yet, then?
Yeah, no, I haven't, and until it hits any sort of streaming, I have no intention of seeing it. Warwick Davis is a talented actor. Yes, Harry Brady, he absolutely is. I would like to see them do something, as long as it's tasteful, that honors Val Kilmer's work as Mad Mardigan. Because aside from Warwick Davis, who was, of course, fantastic, he was the best thing about that movie.
Indeed.
Just as a sword nerd and a historical nerd, I'm going to bring this image back up, and I'm just going to gush over that back sword that the tall guy is wearing. It is the most realistic version of what you could call a big anime sword that anybody's ever made, because it could be used. It has elements of probably 3 different actual Chinese Dao, none of which ever fit together the way it is portrayed here, but they all certainly could have. It's a believable, back-carryable, big weapon. And thank God whoever the weapon designer is for this came up with that. I'm really looking forward to that level of innovative creativity and practical creativity being applied across the whole thing. And so far in the trailer, it looks like it. So, November 30th, folks. That's when it drops.
One thing that stuck out to me with the trailer was Willow seems a lot more sure of himself.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they made it clear that he is now a full-on wizard and not a, I guess, wizard apprentice or whatever you'd want to call it. That one scene where you see him activate his staff. So somebody is doing something with a fairly Harry Potter-esque wand, and they imply that in response to that, Willow's staff is apparently stuck in the ground, or it's just being held by his magic, because he's not touching it, and he just moves his hand across behind it, and it starts glowing green. And it's like, yes, Willow knows his stuff. So, can't wait to see it.
Same.
And folks, that's it. Like I said, we don't have a lot of topics this week. It's only about a half an hour show, and that's cool by me. I'm still exhausted. And looking at how many images I have to go through.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right. So, our last big promo that we do every night is, of course... before we get into that, Byron, do you have a Could We Please, Could We Not?
Actually, I do. Since we were talking about it during the Andor discussion, can we please just stop trying to... Can we stop with the whole restorative nostalgia mindset? Like, we don't own these characters. We don't own these IPs. They don't belong to us. I'm sorry if the things that these companies are doing are upsetting you guys, but get over it. Yeah, the original incarnations of these properties still exist. If you're feeling that, if you're longing for the halcyon days of when all the saviors were white and all the black people were like, yes, massa, no massa. then you can go back. You can go watch that stuff there. This is the future. This is now. Get over it.
Yep. Good point. I agree 100%. You know, grow or die. It's that simple. Yeah. All right. So our last promo is if you want to go check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We'd love to have you do that. We'd love to have you become a patron, of course. We have just 3 tiers. The lowest tier is $2. And basically it helps us get to cons now that cons are coming back. Fingers crossed, no COVID from Anime Boston. I haven't heard any reports from any of my friends yet. And mask enforcement was pretty good.
Yeah, they were all pretty good. And all the people there were really obliging about it for the most part.
Yep. I've heard one report where somebody thought it was less impressive mask compliance than they hoped, but I don't know what they hoped, which was probably 100%. I would say it was as close to 100% as I've ever seen. So fingers crossed. But patreon.com/nerdcaliber, go check it out. In the meantime, so coming up, our next show is Thursday. It is Full Fat Spoiler Chat. Full Fat Spoiler Chat this week is Love, Death, and Robots. Volume 3. They don't call them seasons. Whatever. I started watching, obviously I haven't because it dropped while I was at Anime Boston. I started watching it yesterday in the middle of the day, right when my neighbor decided, crash, our community table ran out of COVID tests. Yeah, so thank Lewis tremendously, Crash the Stampede, for, 1, being our table guy on Saturday, 2, bringing in an awful lot of COVID tests because in his day job he works in healthcare. We won't say how or where. And he had access to all of these. That's part of his mission, is to give out these free tests.
And also just for being his sexy self.
Well, yes, and just for being his sexy self. Even if it was his sexy, sweaty self, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Anyway. Yes, Crash, and thank you very much for bringing those tests and giving them out really quickly, apparently, on Saturday at our community table in Community Row. So I was wrapping up Love, Death, and Robots. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I started watching it, and then my neighbor started mowing the lawn, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm gonna pick that up when it's not happening. So
nice.
We'll see you Thursday. I should know what Nerd Caliber's what No Nerd Caliber is on Monday, but I don't, so I'm going to see if I can get it up real quickly here to tell you what that is, because it would be based on the spoiler chat of the following week, and it is going to be top 3 favorite video game protagonists. Because I bet the next week our Full Fat Spoiler Chat is going to be the Halo series. So we'll see you at one of those upcoming shows. We'll see you at an upcoming con. We'll be at PortCon Maine. We'll be in July at Terrificon. We'll be at Pop Cult Anime Con in late August. We'll be at Fan Expo Boston, actually earlier in August. So yeah, you'll see us at a bunch of cons this summer. Kineticon. Yes. Sorry, forgot Kineticon in July as well, or mid-July. Stay safe. Enjoy the warm weather. Byron, give us a goodbye.
Hey, guys. Great to spend time with all you guys again. Again, check out my Webtoon series, Sisterhoods. It's on Webtoons, 2 words, Sisterhoods.
Do
Bye,
that.
everybody.
And for the rest of us at Nerd Caliber, again, stay safe, have fun.